a transfer.
Ta-da! So, Chris, can you hear me? Can you see me? Wonderful.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Hey.
cool. It's good to have you here. It's good to have you in the show again. And I guess we have seen each other around about 7 weeks ago or something like that. Yeah.
Was it? Wow.
Yeah. So I hope you are still fine and okay and busy and healthy over there in the US.
Yes, thankfully, still doing well and enjoying surviving, I should say, this brutal winter in Los Angeles. You know, it's just so hot and sunny.
Thank you for this. I have minus 9 degrees I had this morning here in the Cologne area.
Yeah, it was, and right now, how much? I have -7, which is like it's okay. It's not -7. But like how the with the wind is it's okay -7. Yesterday it was -15, so no complain. We did not complain. It's all good.
My goodness.
It's going to stay cold at least until next Monday. I learned today in the news, and really cold. So up to -20, which is really quite a number for Germany. But yeah, it's how it is.
This morning
is how it is.
Yeah.
This morning I was talking to someone from Indonesia, and they have flooding, a lot of rain, and they are being flooded there in Indonesia. So, weather, crap everywhere. Anyway.
Yeah. Chris, let's, as always, start with a little introduction round. So, please tell us and our audience who you are.
Certainly. So, my name's Chris Hewish. I have been in the video game industry for my entire career, which has been quite a while. And I've started on the development side, always had a passion for games, and really learned a lot about video games and the mechanics of games by growing up in a hobby store where we played board games and Dungeons and Dragons and all of this. And that was a really good primer for setting me up for a career in the games industry as a creative. And then, I always like to say the creative side was my passion, and somewhere along the way discovered an aptitude for the business side of it and got into producing and then running sort of slates for media companies and running some game studios. And then was fortunate enough about a year ago to join a company called Xsolla. And, this is giving me a whole new perspective on the games industry and opportunities to talk with cool people like yourselves. So thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Wonderful. Thank you. Chris, as you haven't met Rufina yet in person, let's ask Rufi for an introduction too. Yeah. So, Rufina, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. So hi everybody. My name is Rufina. I had been working, for the gaming industry since 12, 14 years. So it's definitely much less than some of my peers here with me at the show. But I was always involved in events, rather not connected to, never worked with game developer or publisher, sadly, even though I really tried and wanted. But I always wanted to also work for the event industry, and somehow I found internship that actually turned out to be employment, and slowly I kind of grew in the job and the company. Last 2 years ago, I joined devcom as head of sales, and really enjoying very much this position. It involves a lot of different aspects and a lot of skills. To be very polyvalent, let's put it this way. It's a rather small team, but extremely passionate, and we really love our conference and the company, so we're trying our best. And so when Stefan actually asked me if I would like to join the industry and insider to be a sidekick or host, I was like, yeah, happy to do so. And then I have the chance to meet awesome people. So so that's pretty much
But I always like to add some important details. So Rufina worked for Game Connection in Paris and the US for 10 years.
Yeah.
Rufi?
Yeah.
And that was always, for me, it was always, I always wanted to hire Rufina as a sales manager for Aruba back then, and then for devcom. And by accident, really by accident.
Exactly, it was really much accident.
We had a quick chat at the same day where I announced that I'm looking for a new sales manager for devcom. And Rufina hadn't seen that, so it was just like, could you imagine that maybe now is the time to work together finally? And I was like, oh wow!
It was very such a strange coincidence. I have to I don't understand how it happens, but yeah, it's very funny.
Me neither.
But yeah.
And Chris, we started the show talking about the famous food Game Connection always had in the beginning when Game Connection started in Lyon. Have you ever been at Game Connection? Do you know the event?
Once, many years ago, and I've also been to Lyon. And when I was working, with Activision many years ago, there was a developer in Lyon that we were working with, and so we went there. And beautiful city, amazing. Yes.
Well, may I ask the developer if you can you say the name of the developer you were working for?
I realized as soon as I said that I would be asked that question, and I don't remember the name of the developer.
White Screen? Nah.
I remember they were working on an animated series based on a French popular French show. Either a movie or a series.
Could it be Artifact Studio? No.
I'm not sure.
No. But okay, I will make some research. Now I'm very curious about.
I'll have to find that out for our next show. I'll find out.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
a really nice group of people, though. Yeah.
I always like having these highlight memories of things happening in the past. So, for example, for a good friend of mine, the food of Game Connection, having this French wine and cheese there for lunch, obviously was such an highlight. He's still talking about it, although it's 16 years ago or something. Chris, do you have any kind of those highlight memories when you think about former game events?
Oh my gosh, so many. I will admit this was from one of the trips to Lyon. I'm going to sound like such a crude American here, but we were taken to a beautiful restaurant that was built in this sort of old cellar of a building, and it was a small restaurant, and the chef, it was one of these meals where the chef would prepare the meal for you. So amazing food was prepared, but my palate was not ready for this. So the steak came out, and the steak was very, very rare. And I was raised, my parents are British, so everything I ate had been cooked well done, right? Everything was boiled and well done, no sauce, the meat was completely cooked. So that's kind of how I prefer my steaks. And this meal comes out, and I just could not eat the steak. So without even knowing any better, I was not an international traveler at that point. I said, could you take this back and ask the chef to cook it some more, please? Well,
legendary moment.
Yeah, did they do it? Did they cook the meat? Yeah.
So I was hungry. So I went to McDonald's later.
Oh no!
But that's exactly what I experienced in France too. They refused to do something different with the meal I had on my table. It was like, you crazy German bastard! What are you asking for?
But...
Yeah.
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 So that's my culinary story, which
But
is slightly embarrassing, but
No, it's okay. It's okay.
French people can be so anal about food. Sometimes it can. I was like this as well. I'm still are like sometimes I'm like, but I also like to play around about like this kind of it has to be like done this way just because it's funny. But some people really believe and really like they are rigid and they don't not gonna change. And it's so sad because I mean you just I mean maybe it's a nice memory, but they could have done the steak the way you liked it, and then you could have eaten it. I don't know. It just sounds so stupid somehow.
yes.
Yeah. Nico just wrote in the chat, but Rufina, that onion soup, I still dream about it.
We went in Paris with Nico in oh my god, 2 years, October 2019, right? And just in front of the Gare de Lyon, like so, it's just like a train station. We had something for lunch, and he had onion soup, very basic, like very simple, traditional food, and Nico is still dreaming about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, one of the first really highlight memories I have of an international event. Let's not talk about our own events we did here in Germany, but I was when I was for the first time ever at GDC in San Francisco.
Same for me.
I was so blown away by the pure amount of people visiting talks and being at a conference. And you remember these huge elevators leading downstairs in the North Hall, I guess, yeah. And it was like, wow, where am I here? And I felt like a little boy. And although I have been at E3 several times, and we were running our own conferences here in Germany already, and working for games convention back then, and all this. So I thought like, how do they want to impress me at all? And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. That was really mind-blowing. And I also remember my first ever dinner in an American steak restaurant. It was in San Francisco at Morton's Steakhouse. And it was, I've never seen that before. They came with a platter to our table with a living, what's the English word for hummer? Hummer.
I don't know what it's kind of for me.
Yeah, this little...
the hummer?
A lobster?
Lobster, thank you.
Yes.
And they showed it to us on the table, and you could choose different slices of meat, and it was awesome.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Wow.
And after that, I tried to get a steak like this somewhere here in Germany, and I didn't find it for years. I guess 2 or 3 years it took me to find another steak restaurant in Frankfurt. And in Frankfurt, there was one. And then nothing else in Germany. So every time I went to San Francisco, I needed to go there at least 2 or 3 times. And
why you never brought us, Stefan? I'm so jealous.
Yeah, back then it was always a question of the budget, you know.
Oh yes.
I had to spend hundreds of dollars for my meal. There was no budget left for you, for the team. Yeah.
I see the. I can
You
see
know
the
how it is.
priorities.
You know how it is.
Well, hopefully we'll be back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my. Really
We'll have to
miss
do that steak dinner together next time we can be in person.
That would be
Wouldn't
cool.
be nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully they have something else which is not meat, but yeah, for
Oh
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of good variety now. So
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's traveling to San Francisco is one of the places I miss the most. I would have not thought about this because it was such a hassle to go to San Francisco. It's such a long trip. You're so tired and stuff. But I really miss it. I really miss San Francisco. I really miss GDC, and I missed the atmosphere. So revigorating and inspiring.
yeah.
Yeah.
But amazingly, the industry still goes on, even though we miss the events.
Yeah.
Which
Still
is
acquisition crazy.
quite wonderful, leading to our first question of today.
Okay.
So obviously, Chris, there is a lot of money in the games industry at the moment. At least we can see that there are a lot of big acquisitions out there right now. So, for example, Gearbox, acquired by the Embracer Group. So is it something special happening out there right now, or is there more money in our market than ever before, so people need to spend it, or is it part of a normal or quite
it's pretty amazing, Stefan, just the amount of activity. Last year, what was it last year, the investment in video games was up something like 77%, and it has shown no signs of slowing down this year with, some of the recent announcements. And, I think we've seen this happen a few times in the industry before. I think it's a combination of, the double-edged sword of everybody being at home for the past year, which has led to an increase in engagement and retention, and as an extension of that, an increase in revenues for game companies. That has certainly brought new money to the table. But even before that, Embracer Group has been on this roll-up for quite a few years. And, I think what's interesting is we look at all of the investments that have happened in games over the past year, and we tend to lump them all together. But it's really a lot of different types of investments that are happening. And, for somebody like the Embracer Group, they started, I believe, back in 2014 with their activity. And they're pursuing what is typically known as a roll-up, right? Where you start to acquire companies and gain momentum and get bigger and bigger. And they're unique because they're doing it off of the Swedish stock exchange, which is what they call a self-regulated. For a lot of our audience who may think of investments from a North American perspective, what's interesting about Embracer is they're doing it on the Sweden exchange, which is self-regulated and offers a little more freedom to issue new stock and and pursue a more aggressive kind of roll-up strategy. And I'm fascinated by what they've done, where they started early on and got THQ Nordic and some other companies, and through a combination, as long as those companies have the overall revenue has increased, even if the margins may not be there, as long as the revenue is increased, they then can offer new stock against that, and that allows them to go after bigger and bigger acquisitions. So it's really fascinating, and that's a pretty unique, I think, approach based upon where they're listed, which is different from some of the other activity that's going on.
I was going to say, do you think that they have a what are their strategy in terms of which company they're buying? Are they trying to offer like a portfolio of services of company like Keywords did, for example, like a couple of 4 years ago, when they did several acquisition in terms of like companies to offer like a back end, like a full service company to their clients. So do you think Embracer has kind of the same strategy, or?
Yeah, I mean, their CEO just recently had said, and I'm reading the quote here, that they're not about catching everything, just those with the right long-term mindset. So, it's interesting. Obviously I'm not on the inside there, but they do seem to be going after companies that have a good history, right? That have strong IP, that are making good games, and I like the sort of acquisitions they're going after, and they do seem to be longer term acquisitions. Aspire Media was one of the ones that they acquired, who I've been familiar with for many years, and yeah, it's curious. It's interesting. Not a lot of names that everybody knows.
Exactly.
Yeah, but a lot of solid developers and publishers and IP.
I'm always preparing the next slide here in the background. So
Yes.
as I run the show from my home office at the moment, I'm always like being Sebastian, Niklas, and myself in one person. But two things that are really interesting is the first, I get all these advertisement for sweaters and stuff like this. I have no idea why, but obviously someone thinks I need to buy a new dress. And I found this older message about the acquisition of Bethesda by Microsoft. So in this article from Thomas Wild at GeekWire, they talk about a massive disruption for the video game industry. What do you think? Why is that such a change of the classic business model we had so far?
Yeah, it's funny. People love to use the word disruption. I think the Bethesda acquisition was just disruptive in the sense that has been an independent company for so long, and they have so many great brands and IPs, and ZeniMax Media, right, the parent company of Bethesda. It just brings so much to the Microsoft ecosystem. And, I use that word ecosystem on purpose with Microsoft because I think they are really showing that they're thinking of gaming, at least from my perspective, as a full cross-platform ecosystem. And versus Sony and Nintendo, which are really they're just in their hardware silos, right? And, I feel like Microsoft is changing the playing field or even moving away from being a direct competitor in the console in the sense of hardware, because they're acquiring these companies and they're not necessarily forcing the games to be locked into their own platform. They are, these games are still available on other platforms. But the thing I think that's really, to me personally, really exciting from an opportunity standpoint with the acquisition of Bethesda is how can Microsoft, there's an opportunity for them to take these big open world games, right, that Bethesda is known for, and bring them into this big cloud ecosystem that Microsoft is building. And as a gamer and a developer, I wonder if we might start to see a doubling down on these open worlds, and can they actually take these worlds and make them much, much larger, sort of fulfilling that cloud promise of if you're running a open world game on the cloud, can you get it into the thousands of players? And there's a company that Microsoft has been working with called Hadean, and they are a company that specializes in this. They're working on right now on Minecraft to get that up into the thousands of players per sort of session in the same game. So I really it's like I see, okay, they've acquired Bethesda. It's disruptive in the business sense because now it's another big company, being gobbled up by a bigger company, and all the resources that brings to bear. But from a creative standpoint and what it means for the players, I think it could be disruptive in the sense of starting to give players open worlds that are much, much larger, that are available on any platform. And that's really exciting. To me, that's something that is unique. And conversely, a lot of these other acquisitions, one of the complaints over the past few years about the sort of the shrinking size of the market with more companies getting under one umbrella is that a lot of games have become homogenous, and you worry that if all these game studios are under one parent company, that the creativity may drop and the games may be similar. So to me, this is potentially disruptive because of the technology that it opens up to Bethesda and what they can do with those games. So, yeah.
You're talking about Microsoft, the cloud services that they're really pushing, and I can't stop myself thinking about Stadia closing their internal studios. And so, what do you? That was last week. So, but what do you think about this news? So, it could be interesting to also have your insight.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go work for Stadia. No, I do feel bad for a lot of the people. First and foremost, I feel really bad for all the people that they hired. It was just a year ago, or a little over a year ago, that they opened up these studios right up in Canada. They had great aspirations. They brought in a lot of talent. They opened a studio down here in LA, and so many good people were brought on board, and they had the rug pulled out from under them before even having a chance, right? So I think that kind of sucks, to be honest.
But even though they kind of promised to actually keep those people, like they were saying that there's 150 people that they want to keep into the Google system, ecosystem company, and reassign. So
I hope they do, and that's great. That's the right thing to do. But certainly that isn't what a lot of those people signed up for, right?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And I find it's interesting. There's, I've heard talk in the industry of, way back when there were some people who were saying that Stadia made more sense as a technology service that Google could offer or white label out to other companies, right? And I think obviously we're now seeing that. That's exactly what they're talking about. And it's a little disheartening that they didn't stick. Like, why would you start these studios and try to make these games if you weren't committed to seeing it through? Obviously they had their own metrics in regards to adoption. I think they found that it was a great technology that just there wasn't a big need for. One of the things that I've been talking with our team about is talking about these cloud services and how 2020 was a year that the technology was proved, right? So the technology now is proven to work. It just was not quite the right timing for a number of reasons. One, most people are at home and are connected to the internet from home. So part of the promise of cloud gaming is mobility, right? And being out and about and cross-platform and all of that. So there hasn't been a big need for it yet. But also, in a lot, I think for us, it's easy to assume that everybody has sort of high bandwidth, access to high bandwidth. And that still isn't really the case. So, I think the future is still good for cloud gaming. We just need accessibility to high bandwidth for a greater number of people, which will come with, I think 5G is going to be a good convergence there once that's truly out. And then also just the behaviors. Once people start to leave their homes more, right, after the pandemic subsides, there will now be more, I think, sort of need or more appetite for gaming on the go, right?
Chris, earlier in the show, you already stated that the amount of acquisitions raised by 77%, I guess. I found this article here on Games Industry Biz, and what I really like about this one is that it's also mentioning here the most active investors in 2020. Bitcraft Ventures, never heard about them. Galaxy Digital, never heard about them. Play Ventures I knew before. Makers Fund I knew, and Andresen Horowitz, of course, I know them. But is this something that I simply missed out? Are those big partners or big players in the game for many, many years? Or are there a lot of new investors showing up, investing new money into the games industry?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Bitcraft, great group of people there. They actually had the I guess I was going to say honor, but that's the wrong word. They took the crown for raising the largest game fund last year or the year before, so they deployed that, and they're still active. But you're right, they're not names like Andreessen Horowitz, which have been around for a long time, right? Have been very involved in just the broader technology sectors. So you do have some companies that, even if they've been around for a little while, they've really increased the amount of their game investment funds, right? So they're starting to make a lot of noise in our space. And this just goes to show the amount of money that's flowing into the industry, both institutional, but also high net worth individuals, family offices. There's just so many people have now, I think, woken up to the gaming industry as a real growth sector, which for us probably sounds silly because we've been in it for a while and it continues to grow every year. And but from an investor standpoint, I think the past year has really opened a lot of people's eyes, and that's why I think this year is just going to be even bigger when it comes to investments.
Yeah, I'm not that deep into investments, obviously, but I'm really curious to see where those companies are coming from. So I guess a lot of them are from the US. In this list here, there are, of course, Tencent as a Chinese company, but are there investors coming from Middle East, for example, where at least from my very European perspective, a lot of money is waiting for investments? Or are those companies not even part of this rally?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Stefan, and I unfortunately don't have a good answer for you. I know that there is a lot of money over there. Just speaking from personal experience, a few years ago, I know there was some concern over accepting money from certain countries, just not legally, but morally. And, that had some impact, at least from what I saw. I saw some transactions that didn't happen because of that, which, I have mixed feelings about. I think, that's a tough one when you get into those waters. But I would imagine that there is probably a lot of investment flowing out of the Middle East, but into these companies, right? These other, whether they're special purpose, vehicles, or the investors themselves, right? Companies, like the ones that we've talked about. And I do want to loop back just to step off the Middle East part of it. You're asking, where did some of these companies come from? Well, Bitcraft, interestingly, the founders there have actually been in the industry a long time. Malte Barth was with ESL way back when, and they kind of started with an esports focus. Jens Hilgers is one of their founders. And, so they started off, or they came out of some of the founders came out of esports and started this Bitcraft, which was more of an esports investment company. And then it really grew beyond that. So I think that's part of what you're seeing, why you may not know a lot of these names. They've been around, these companies, but now they're expanding sort of their activity beyond what may have been a niche area to begin with. But don't think that they're newcomers to the game space, right? Which is really cool. And I think that's part of why Bitcraft has been so successful, is they do have that pedigree and experience in the game space.
Do you see any new trends in the investment or acquisition of companies? So, for example, yesterday or the day before, I guess EA acquired Glue Mobile, which is not really a new trend because it's a mobile company. Yeah, so it makes sense. If you want to strengthen your mobile business, you acquire mobile companies. But do you see any really interesting new acquisitions out there?
Oh boy, I wish I did. I wish I had that crystal ball, right? I would be calling you from a much different location in 7 weeks. But I think, I don't know if I see new trends. I do have a question as to where this all leads. You know, at a certain point, there's just not a lot left on the table, right, in regards to companies to acquire. So it's either going to lead, it could lead to more bigger acquisitions. Right now, you know, are we going to see these EA, for instance, you know, like you said, they just made a big acquisition with Glue. Microsoft did a big acquisition. Are we going to see these larger companies moving in to acquire the acquirers, right? You know, I do wonder what's going to happen with Embracer Group when, you know, when they hit a certain point. And then at the same time, are we going to see an increasing overvaluation of smaller companies or startups? I think one of the trends that we should keep an eye on, actually, I was thinking about this last night, you know, before talking with you guys, is a lot of times what happens after big acquisitions is you start to see people leave these companies with a little money in their pockets, and you see a new wave of startups, right, come up. So I'm really curious to see what all of these acquisitions do to the startup landscape over the next 12 to 24 months, as a lot of these developers, if they're not the people who are locked in to retention contracts at the, you know, there'll be a few people locked in, but what happens to the larger teams? You know, typically you do see people spin out and take an opportunity to start up their own studios, and then you layer on top of that a reduced inventory of new companies to acquire. So a lot of the money going into the games industry, if that money continues to flow, has to go somewhere. So it could very well flow into startups. And I think that's pretty exciting. You know, it's also scary. You know, you could get some overfunded startups, which I know sounds silly to consider a startup overfunded, but you know, that can have a negative impact if the funding sort of is above what the needs are, right, for the startup. So I don't know. I think to me that's the trend that I want to keep an eye on is what are the bigger companies doing, right, as the inventory reduces, and then what's happening in the startup space as people take their acquisition checks and you know, go out to do new things.
I was really fascinated to read that. It's another topic now, but Tesla invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Yes. So I was like, maybe now is the time to found a game developer that is working with chain technology. Yeah, but that was really surprising. So I honestly, I don't even understand why they did that. So it's so up and down still with Bitcoin. If I go to a trader and buy a car for, let's say, maybe 5,000 Bitcoins or whatsoever, on the one day it's worth millions, and a few weeks later it's not worth the half.
So volatile.
I don't get it. But
Sorry, Stefan.
No, I'm really curious to see if this will have any impact on the games industry. Yeah, so is blockchain a technology we will use in the future more and more for our games? So a few weeks ago we had Ben Zuckerer here as a guest. He's one of the founders and also CEO of Zipsoft, which is a German-based company running Tibia. Which is the oldest massive multiplayer game in the world, I guess, right now. And
25 years old, something like that.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable successful in Brazil. So, but they invested into a game called Lightbringer, and Light is also the name of a blockchain currency. And they are really successful with that. So I was really surprised to hear that, and it was interesting to talk with him about it. And but it's the only games company I know so far in investing in blockchain technology. Yeah. But
there was, I think I heard about one in Switzerland. but they were not investing. They were doing a game that had using blockchain and cryptocurrency. Trying to remember the. I could, yeah, doesn't pop into my head, but I know one. That's it.
Yeah. So let's see if this is going to be a big thing in the future. But I'm always curious when Elon Musk or one of his companies investing in trends like this. It's always like, what's happening there?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, right. Did he just read it on Reddit? or is there a strategy at play here?
Yeah.
God love him. I mean, Elon Musk, man, he keeps our lives interesting, and
it's so crazy. Have you seen, Chris? Have you seen the documentary about the trial and errors of SpaceX when they started the rockets back then and tried to land them on sea and all this? It's so emotional. It's so amazing to see how he manages this huge amount of 400, 500 employees, all in the age of their early 30s, I would guess. And they were all yelling and crying when the rocket didn't land correctly. And then the next try, and everyone again yelling and crying again because it and then finally in the end when it landed, it's such an amazing documentary.
Such an amazing. I've got so much respect for Elon Musk. I don't know how he does it, but he is so aspirational and able to get people to execute against those aspirations and believe, which is, I think, a real treat. It just we need more of that in the world. And but when it comes to blockchain and games, that's a tough one, right? The industry has been trying to crack that one for a few years, and even companies like Ubisoft, right, have been looking into what can you do with blockchain. I know part of, I was talking with a number of blockchain companies a few years ago, and they all were saying the similar thing at that time, at least, which is we're really struggling with trying to find a way for games to use the blockchain technology that in ways that aren't obvious, right? And I think there was a lot of everyone was thinking like, oh, right, ownership and being able to see the history or the pedigree of an item and track that, and being able to own it for forever and control all of that. Those were the obvious things that people were thinking about, but it wasn't enough to really get that technology adopted, right? So I think that's been the struggle for blockchain and games. Is it's an amazing technology, but how does it make gaming better, right? What does it do how does it create a unique platform, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I guess once you are big enough as a developer or publisher to do more and more games in the same universe, it might be very interesting for me as a player to have equipment that I earned in that game and that I can take into the next game, and it's my unique equipment. So it's worth a lot, not only on the how to say that in English, ideal side, but also in terms of money I invested into that item. But can this item leave the micro universe of that single company? Yeah. How do you exchange blockchain technology between EA and Ubisoft? Yeah, that would be really interesting for me as a gamer to have something that I can use in different games, over different platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the use case that has been talked about, but that's exactly the problem. That just has not been a compelling enough thing, or getting the different game. I mean, it's hard enough even if you're the same company, it's hard enough to make two games that you could transfer assets between, right? Much less different companies. And then if I'm Ubisoft? Do I want EA players actually benefiting from something that I've created? You know, it's now you start to get into that issue of, you know, if people have items that they own and can transfer from one game to another, that means the player is transferring from one game to another. So, you know, if you're different companies, or even if you're the same company, if you're two different games, there's still competition within the company around retaining players, right? I may not, if I'm losing players from my game to one of my, you know, coworkers' games, does that mean my game's going to get shut down eventually, right? Because I'm losing players.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you get into these bigger sort of existential threats and issues that I think are why blockchain has struggled to find a good use case in gaming.
That's a good point. I agree. I agree. A lot of
I just remember the name of the company exactly about this topic. It's called Everdream Soft. And they're on LinkedIn, and they have this game called Spells of Genesis, which is using blockchain, launched in 2017. Everdream Soft set a trend of true ownership of digital assets, exactly what we are talking about, based in Switzerland. And,
interesting. Yeah. Okay, I prepared another topic for us today. Of course, we need at least try to understand what's happening at CD Projekt, right? So, yeah, them being hacked, and I don't know, Chris, if you had the time to check their important update they posted.
Did.
Yeah. It's really very emotional, and I think it's the only way they could handle it, right? I try to... here we go. There we are. I hope you can see this.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I think as a company, you don't have any other chance than going public with this information as soon as possible, and tell the attacker that you're not going to pay anything. Yeah, but
this is a tough one. I mean, gosh, I feel for the folks over at CD Projekt. They had a rough go of it, and I just really feel for the team, right? The folks in the trenches, you know, creating such an aspirational game. And a game that's going to live on, and you know, I think so many people have enjoyed Cyberpunk, you know, even with all the negative press, and then just to have this happen, it's you're right. I mean, this is kind of the only response, you know, but honestly, it's kind of brave to put this out there, because you are kind of in a way escalating it, right? And but I don't know what else you can do, and I love the transparency. Exactly. And you know, it's interesting. When I first saw that headline, I thought, wait, is this a publicity stunt? Is there a hack in the game? Wait a minute, do I need to launch Cyberpunk and see if there's a hack going on, you know, or a takeover in the game? Then sadly realized, no, this is the real deal, and they're kind of living their game at this point.
And it's so frustrating, because we know a lot of them, and they are really such a nice bunch of people over there, and giving everything to deliver a really cool project. And just because of some management mistakes they did on the last month of everything, they obviously created some group of haters out there who think it's okay to do this kind of bullshit.
I mean, the thing I would, you know, my tiny voice out into the you know, into the gale, into the hurricane, but I would hope that people out there, if this information does get leaked, right, and it goes public, emails, internal communications, the one thing I would hope is that people, if they do read these things, read them in context, and remember the context of when these things were written and said. Because look, I'm sure there's internal emails. People are frustrated. People are expressing ideas, exploring, just candid, maybe like, well, what if we did this? Or I'm so frustrated. And things get written and said in the heat of the moment, are based upon conditions around them. And the sad thing when something like this happens is you see those communications out of context, right? And, it just, I hope people, remember that before, sort of making judgments and hating on people, and it's tough, making games is hard, and, game makers are really trying to create things that they hope players enjoy. And even the people running business of, game companies, yeah, of course they're trying to make a profit, but they're also thinking about, how do they keep the company alive, right? And how do we deliver on a promise, but they also have the responsibility of making sure that the company is still around and everybody is still employed. And that often can lead to these tensions of releasing games when they're maybe not quite ready or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it's...
But honestly, I have never seen another company in the games industry before handling this escalated situation that well. So they were very open. They went in front of the camera. They did really cool statements. They had a plan, and they refunded everyone who was unhappy with the game and all of this, So it's really a pity that they now have to deal with this kind of bullshit,
It really feels like a harassment on their, some people are getting really like unhappy and just like bullying them. It just feels crap. Like it's not nice.
But let's end with another thing I found on the net. And it's it's this one. It's just for fun. It's no serious topic, so don't be afraid. But Chris, did you have the time to check this festival out on Steam, the Steam Game Festival? I missed it. I completely missed it. Today I had a meeting with a colleague from the Game Association, and we were talking about Steam and the platform and gamescom and all this, and he was like, did you check out the Game Festival on Steam? No. And I did not even know what was going on there.
I missed that completely.
You have to check it out. Take if possible, take half an hour today and watch this, because it's really amazing. It's like you can see here, they have a lot of live broadcasts and with really huge numbers of viewers. And we experience it here on Twitch too. So the numbers since a week are much lower than in the weeks before. And a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, are watching live streams now on Steam. And you can stream there for, I guess, 2 years now, but it never was a really big thing. But it's getting bigger and bigger and really big. And you can jump into the genre you are interested in. You have a broadcast schedule down here, so you can easily mark those streams to not miss them. You can even put them onto your wish list right immediately here, and all this stuff. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And I did never expect Valve to work on something like this. And I tell you, this is going to change a lot.
This is a disruptive of the
for Twitch.
The offer or model against Twitch and all the streaming platforms.
I truly believe, at least for games on Twitch. If you have,
I mean, it's a powerful tool, right? And I've seen this for a few years on Steam as well. And but I always kind of had thought of it more as, it's a developer update, or it's a good tool for early access if you're trying to keep your community involved. But you talking about it today, it just really kind of the light bulb kind of went off, where I realized, I just thought, oh my gosh, how powerful for a developer to be able to get a stream at the same place that the player can make the purchase and get all the information about the game.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the big difference.
I also saw some. Sorry, I also saw some events having their indie showcase on stream. On like, so they have also the event page. You can actually advertise your event. And I was already looking into having one of our summits or Twitch shows on stream. The question is, how do we get in touch with stream? Team?
Yeah, we will simply ask Peter to make an introduction for us. So we in Germany Steam is also part of our association, and but it's only a legal subsidiary here in Germany. So yeah, it's a lawyer managing it. But we can ask him to introduce us. But it's really a game changer, and I truly believe that being able to stream on the same platform where you can purchase, that's exactly the point, Chris. Exactly the point. And this is interesting. And I'm so angry about myself that I missed it.
And also, we have a huge community of developer watching. Like it's not only about the gamers. It's also a lot of game developers are on Steam looking at other games, and what I like about this is it has the audience that we, for example, could be interested in for a lot of our events and activities. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So, Chris, unfortunately, our time is over. So 60 minutes of your very valuable time. Thanks for joining us today. We do something new with this video. So we will upload this video right away to YouTube and then share it at LinkedIn. So it's a new way to distribute our games industry insider content to the people out there. Yeah, we are so innovative. Yeah.
Well, I enjoy your innovation and conversation, and I really do appreciate being on. And thank you so much. And Rufina, it's great to meet you.
Likewise.
Stefan, it's always a pleasure. So
likewise.
Looking forward to talking again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Looking forward to seeing you soon again.
Very soon indeed.
Yes.
And
thank you.
Okay.
I will switch to the end screen right away.
Okay.
So, Chris, it was a pleasure having you here. Rufina, thanks for joining me today. All the others out there, take care and let's talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.